Hello.
Hello.
I'm feeling okay before I talk. Then I do the hello, and it just takes every bit of energy. I die halfway through.
You give it all you got.
Yeah. But
give it all up for the sign.
Yeah. This is the Second Button Podcast, and we're doing season 3, episode 4. Unless you're watching the DVDs, it's episode 3.
Okay.
Yep. Originally aired on October 9th, 1991. And we're going to dedicate this episode to the two bestest boys ever, little Herman and little Cosmo.
Yep.
You lost Herman last year?
Yes.
Yeah.
So Herman was my dachshund. I think it was for like 13 years. So I adopted him. He was about,
Like Cosmo for 14 years. He died there about a month ago. So this is for them.
So.
They are much better dogs than the dog in this episode.
Than this dog.
But the dog in this
dog
episode
from-
wasn't the dog's fault. There's a deleted scene that we'll talk about at the end of this that explains why the dog was in such a mood.
Okay.
So we'll talk about that.
So I guess, this episode, I don't know if we said it, it's called The Dog.
Mm-hmm.
So on Reddit, I did see a thread maybe a couple months ago that kind of asked, like, oh, what is your least favorite Seinfeld episode? And this was definitely high on that list.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess we'll talk about it at the end, but I'm like, all right, I don't really... I guess if you had to think of like the worst Seinfeld episodes, I'm kind of thinking probably more earlier, because this one doesn't really rub me the wrong way.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting an awful episode from what I remember, but it wasn't as bad because there's classic parts in this episode that I remember like very well. So
because seeing that post and so many people jumped on it and they were agreed, and I'm like, and it's also like picking like the worst Seinfeld episodes. Like, oh, it's really still not that bad.
It is the lowest rated one on IMDb so far. It got 7.1. And that's
really?
That's the lowest rating of all the episodes we watched so far.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. It's like what's your worst pizza? Well, it's still pizza, so it's still pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Like get a Little Caesars or something like that. Or,
I'll get a $3 pizza at Walmart, throw it on my barbecue. It tastes fucking amazing.
Yeah, it's like it's like the worst episode of Seinfeld is still probably better than a lot of other shows. Yeah. So we'll get into it. It opens up with a bit stand-up bit from Jerry talking about the pilot making up some time during a flight. It's like, oh, sorry, we're slowing down. We're going to make up some time. Yeah. Increasing the speed, not just like a time warp. But it's funny. It's like, you could do that. There's no cops up here to pull you over. So give it some gas, baby. Just floor it. We got places to go, people to see. Let's go.
There has to be a peak moment of speed versus fuel economy in a flight. Because why don't they just go fast?
I'm sure that's the reason. So it's like fuel economy, and then because you put a hurting on that, and then exertion of the engine and parts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's like if you just like redlined your car all the time, that thing's gonna go pretty fucking fast. And I'm sure these airlines and pilots know.
Yeah, they got numbers.
Yeah. So, but it's funny. That was a pretty good bit. It's like, give it some gas. There's no, there's nobody up here. You just like you fly, and it's like you're like the Maxell guy. You just all the passengers. We're going, Han Solo warp speed here.
Yeah, punch it.
But punch it. So it opens up with Jerry on an airplane. He's seated next to some drunk guy. This guy's just slurring his speech. He's really getting after it. He's really getting in Jerry's face too.
Yeah.
Like you're at this point, we already know Jerry's like his space kind of thing is definitely not only is he a clean guy, but he's definitely about his personal space. And this guy just like cuts into the frame like right up in Jerry's face.
Pre-COVID, Jerry was quirky. Now it's just normal.
Yeah. So he had mentions his dog and how oh my God, I got a little puppy, his dog, and it's like mentions that it's in the baggage hold, and it made me think, I'm like, do people actually do that?
Yeah, they do, and I always wonder, like, isn't it not cold in the baggage compartment?
And then
the animals are all alone in a cage, just barking alone.
I wouldn't even feel comfortable putting a guitar in a hard case down there.
No.
But like my dog, absolutely not.
We do like dogs better than guitars, believe it or not.
Yeah. Like that'd be fucking shitty and terrifying for that dog. I know.
Oh, yeah.
At least maybe my dog was he was a little baby, but and he probably could fit in the overhead compartment. But I'm like, people flying with their dogs. It's like, can't you leave the dog at home and just have somebody watch it?
Yeah.
You leave it somewhere. I'm sure the dog is not gonna like that attached to you that they're like, yeah, shove me with the fucking the fucking baggage dark, because they're not keeping it lit and like well ventilated down there.
I wouldn't think. It just seems
you wouldn't, because it's just for people's fucking clothes and shit. And like, here's the dog, and then like you've seen the videos of people's expensive guitars falling off conveyors, and then staff just throwing it in there.
Well, that guy from here wrote the song. Do you ever hear the United Breaks Guitars? Do you ever hear that song? He did a whole series. Like United Airlines broke his guitar.
Oh yeah, okay.
And he did like a whole series of videos, but he was Canadian from here, from Halifax. Yeah.
And then the dog in the cage and conveyor belt, and just like,
yeah,
the guy throwing it in. I definitely wouldn't trust that. Like, I get taking your dog everywhere, but on a plane, I think you could probably skip that.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah.
That's my little rant there. But then, the drunk guy asks if Jerry has any pets, and he proceeds to talk about how an enriching experience that relationship is, between you and an animal. And then Jerry just gets him with like, oh, so picking up their shit, picking up their, I think he says, you know what? Yeah. That's enriching. And then the guy suddenly isn't feeling well. The flight attendants, cut the scene, and then they're on the ground. He's trying to comfort him and the guy, and they had to make an emergency landing in Chicago to get the guy to a hospital. And then the drunk guy, he's like, all this is going down. He's like concerned about the dog. He's like, what about my dog? He's like, who's gonna take care of him? And then they like, do you know anybody on the flight? And then he asks Jerry, like, to take care of the dog Farfel,
just some stranger's dog.
It'll only be a day or two.
Yeah.
And then he tells Jerry, he's like, oh, just give me your number and your address, and I'll follow up with you. And then I would have gotten the guy's info.
Yes.
Like, I wouldn't put it on him to be like, oh, he'll contact me. I'm like, no, give me your number. And then it's almost different, because maybe it's like, in nowadays, like, call me right now so I have your number.
Yeah, I guess if you got his number, he'd be his New York number, and he's in Chicago at the hospital right now. So,
yeah. Like your cell phone. I'm like, I need that. I'm going to fucking track your ass down.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely wouldn't rely on on him. So anyways, the scene ends, and then it fades into Jerry's apartment, and a big dog is barking, or according to Netflix, grunting.
Oh, does it say grunting? Did it?
Big dog grunts.
And that was a voice actor. They didn't get a real dog barking for that. They used a voice actor
really?
to make the barking noises.
Whoa, whoa.
Yeah. It sounded like such a deep throaty bark.
Sounds like so cartoonish too, which is funny.
And this guy does cartoon dogs. So
oh, nice, yeah, nice. Yeah. So it opens, and then Jerry's wrestling a sneaker away from the dog, and then you can see all his furniture has been chewed up. It's like all his chairs are up on the table.
Yeah, everything's on the sofa and everything, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Just so the dog doesn't get after it. And then you can tell Jerry's at his limit. And then Elaine tells him to chill. It's only been 3 days. So already it's past what the guy said. And we're starting off the episode. So it's not 1 day, 2, it's 3.
Yeah. And I noticed the bike's gone in the hallway. It's the first time I noticed the bike's not hanging on the wall in the hallway. So I don't know if that...
I saw that, and I don't know if the bike hasn't been there yet.
Yeah. I might have to go back and look.
Because there was a lot of shots in that hallway. Because it's like...
Yeah, I think it was such a focus. And maybe I noticed it because it was a focus, and maybe it wasn't there the last couple episodes, but I did notice it was gone. Anyway, continue on.
I could tell. Yeah, I did actually notice that too.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of shots in that hallway kind of showing Jerry interacting with the dog, and the dog's never on screen.
Yeah, and that was the way to kind of have the dog around the corner kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. And, I get Jerry. Like, I like dogs, but I liked my dog a lot. I can only imagine, my dog. He was my little guy, my little boy. But I couldn't imagine some fucking monster just tearing up your house. Yeah. And you're like, he doesn't like animals. And then he's taking care of this guy just out of guilt. Taking care of this guy's dog out of guilt. So another really cool thing that we just mentioned is, like, you never see the dog. A good way probably to save on budget. And also, and I don't know if this was their goal, but it kind of lets the viewer envision whatever shit dog they want.
Yeah, because if they put a dog in there and it was like, especially at the time, early 90s, but like a German Shepherd to be a bigger, louder dog. Yeah. People loved German Shepherds so much in the 90s that you couldn't do that because half the odds would be like, fuck you, that looks like my dog. Right?
Or a Rottweiler or something like that. And then I know a lot of people, it's like Rottweilers, they're like big ass dog. And then there's, super gentle. And it's like, oh, this is like, just my fucking big oaf of a dog. Super nice. And then you see other ones that they're like, blah, 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 blah. So every dog, obviously, it's the owner, not the breed. I get it. But I kind of wanted to ask you, what kind of dog did you envision this?
I pictured like I don't even know what I pictured. I think I pictured like a Rottweiler kind of looking dog because that's what you picture. I don't hate Rottweilers.
Me too.
Beautiful
just
dogs. But that's what I picture.
Just a big sloppy dog. And it kind of reminded me of, was it Snot from Christmas Vacation where you're like, drooling and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I pictured a short hair, muscly dog.
Yeah. Definitely not like a poodle.
No.
I didn't expect that. Yeah. And the fact that the guy says, "Oh, my puppy," and I'm like, "That's not a puppy. That's a giant fucking dog."
Yeah.
To have in New York too.
Yeah, no.
It feels so bad for that dog. It's like
nowhere to run.
Big ones. Yeah, I think need a yard, need a big space.
Yeah.
Anyways, so Jerry's complaining to Elaine that he's got a wild animal in the house. Like, what if he gets rabies? Like, I could get lockjaw. And then Elaine has a great little jab. I think goes over. He's like, I can get lockjaw. And she says, if only. It just goes right past Jerry as he goes back to complaining.
Yeah.
The audience got it. And I was like, oh, that's pretty good. He's just going off and he's like, yeah. And then Jerry's talking about how he hasn't left the house in 3 days. The dog just shits everywhere. And then, Elaine, asks like, oh, if, do you pick it up when you're out for a walk? And he's like, yeah. And she's like, I would love to see that. Just Jerry going around, bending over, picking up the dog.
Yeah, so it takes his joke from earlier and kind of wraps it around to her making fun of him for what he was making fun of other people for. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think part of people not liking this episode was the scenes where Jerry's just yelling at the dog. He's just screaming at the dog. There's no comedy there. It's just like, I think the comedy was, I'm frustrated by the dog, but it didn't really translate well.
Yeah.
And then we love dogs. And like, you just keep yelling at this dog. Maybe the dog's angry because you keep fucking yelling at it. Like,
yeah, it's if people say like, oh, you yell at a dog and they think like, oh, well, he's talking to me. I got to talk loud too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Elaine, she's making like, it looks like chocolate milk or something.
Yeah.
And then she's only putting half the milk in the glass. So halfway full. Mm-hmm. And then I also see later she adds seltzer to it. So it's milk with chocolate syrup and seltzer.
I didn't notice.
Like, what the fuck are they drinking?
I didn't notice the seltzer. That's weird.
Because I noticed it was halfway, and I was going to make that point of like, oh, remember how they pour the juice? Like
milk full of juice.
Yeah, and it's just like less than halfway. I'm like, oh, so she's making chocolate milk, but less than halfway. Which I guess maybe 8 ounces per serving size. Mm-hmm. And then she adds seltzer to it. I'm like, what the fuck is that? I've never heard of that type of drink.
No. It sounds disgusting.
Yeah.
I didn't notice the seltzer.
But anyways, I just think it was funny that it's like, oh, halfway again. I'm like, no, later on.
Oh, I'm looking at the script here and it says, Jerry's talking and notices Elaine making egg creams. And he says, you got to put the syrup in first. She says, no milk. Yeah.
Yeah. Egg creams. All right.
Egg creams.
Learn something new.
You guys can Google. We're not Googling this week while we are on the episode. You guys can Google this yourselves. Brian's Googling it as we talk.
Jerry mentions how he tried to call the airline to get info on this guy, and he got nothing. So Jerry's just like stuck waiting for the guy to call. Again, I'm like, if you would have gotten his number, then you'd be the one calling. So and he mentions like, well, I don't know. This guy's probably a drunk. He's probably on a bender. And then he's like, what's a bender? He's like, I don't know. It's probably when they get drunk and they go to the bar and just bend things.
Just bend stuff.
And then, I honestly tried to actually look up what a bender was. And that quote was one of the...
Was it in there?
What a bender was. No, people don't really know. People say it could be like, feels like you have the bends.
Okay. I don't know what they call it. Bender. I just... Yeah. Weird.
So there was no definitive of where the term bender came from. But then Jerry makes the statement. He's like, 200 seats on a plane, and I got to wind up next to Yukon Jack and his dog Cujo.
Yeah. And I couldn't help myself. I looked up egg creams, and it apparently is a substitute for ice cream float.
Okay.
So you get the fuzz like you would with a float, but you get it. Yeah.
Okay. Egg creams. All right.
Carbonated water, milk, and flavored syrup. All right.
That is something I'm not gonna try. That.
Yeah. I will make an ice cream float.
Yeah. I'll just do a beer float. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
But I like this little line where he's like Yukon Jack and his dog Cujo. So I actually looked that up, and you can get it from context of what it is, but so Yukon Jack is a Canadian honey-based liqueur made from Canadian whiskey and honey, which is funny. Like that's the guy's name, Yukon Jack over there. That's like saying Jack. We got Jack Daniels over here, or Jack Daniel himself.
Yeah.
And then Cujo.
You know who Cujo was, didn't you?
I didn't.
Oh man.
That's what
I picture. That's what I picture as Cujo. Yeah.
Saint Bernard. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a horror novel movie about a rabid Saint Bernard.
I think it's originally Stephen King book, isn't it?
Yeah, I think he directed it too. The movie, or at least the movie's based on the book.
Yeah.
And I did look up a trailer for that movie. It looks so silly.
It does.
It looks. I'm like, how? I mean, a Saint Bernard's a big dog, but I'm like, how could it take out a whole like bunch of people, like a town?
And
like,
I think some of the stuff's like puppet animation. That they use.
It's like the dog from Sandlot.
Yeah.
And then, so I don't know. I think that's kind of funny. I'm like, the joke, like I said, with context is funny, but once you know the references, it makes it a lot better. I'm like, that's pretty like quick.
Yeah, I looked up Yukon Jack. I didn't know what Yukon Jack was, but I looked that up.
Yeah.
So I knew Cujo.
Yukon Jack and his dog. I was like, I like that a lot more after I looked it up.
Yeah.
So Jerry says, he's saying to the dog, one more day and it's off to the pound for you, Farfel. So he's added up. And then Kramer comes in. So he's supposed to watch the dog while Jerry, Elaine, and George go see the movie Prognosis Negative. Which
was a screenplay that Larry David wrote that never took off.
Really?
So he wrote Prognosis Negative, and the story was about a guy that didn't realize that negative was a good thing in your prognosis.
Oh, that comes later.
And that comes back later on in the series. Yeah. Negative is good?
He's negative, for cancer or something like that, George. He's like, oh no. Oh my God, I knew this would happen. As soon as I get close to success, it's like, no, that's good. It's like, really?
Yeah. So this is like one of half a dozen movies that are made up in this series. And
there's, and then Rochelle. Yeah. That's another one.
Was English Patient real? I think that might have been a real movie they did when they...
Really? Okay. And then Sack Lunch.
Yeah, Sack Lunch.
Such a big bag. How did they get in there? Don't you want to know? It's like, Kramer, he flakes because he's going to break up with his girlfriend this night. He can't take it anymore.
I wonder too, is this the same girlfriend that he had the last couple times and then she left the show, so they just kind of wrote her out?
I think her name's Ellen. I don't remember, because it was Elaine's roommate, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She was different. So, but Kramer has to get Ellen out of his life. He's not even worried about hurting her feelings. He's actually looking forward to it. Gotta get it. He's like, I'd get it on video and freeze frame it. Gotcha, bitch. And then Elaine and Jerry just start joining in and just ragging on her. It's like, how did you stay with her for so long? And then if her personality was something tangible, it'd be like the Elephant Man exhibit. People be like, oh, gasping. And then Jerry's like, I'm surprised she hasn't gotten, somebody hasn't killed her. Like getting murdered. That's pretty harsh. Yeah. They're all just leading into her. And then Kramer's like, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you say anything when we were going out with her? And then everybody, which is true, because everybody always talks shit like after the breakup.
Oh, yeah, like, thank God you broke up with them. Like, well, I thought you liked them. Well, I said I liked them.
Like, I bet, her friends are doing the same thing about me. I'm like, that piece of shit.
I bet if Ashley left me tomorrow, people are like, about time you left a chubby guy that just does podcasts.
That fucking loser. Yeah. He can hang out with his fucking guitars and Star Wars figures.
His internet friends.
Yeah, he's going to hang out with his internet friends. So he can internet girlfriend. it's funny. It's like, I've broken up with people and people like, oh, she's really annoying, or I didn't see you two lasting, and didn't seem like a really good fit. Shit. And it's like, damn, I did like her.
Yeah, I'm kind of hurt by this.
Yeah, Anyways, so after that convo, Jerry and Elaine, they're talking, and they go back to talking. But it's funny because Kramer doesn't leave the apartment. He goes to the back hallway and he sees the dog. And he reaches for something and then he leaves with something in his pocket. It seems like he was fucking with the dog, or there was a scene that didn't happen or got cut out. It's just something that I noticed. It was like super suspicious of him, which is funny because it's kind of a Kramer, trait. And it's like, what the fuck is he doing? Yeah. And then he just slinks out.
I think based on the deleted scene, I saw, which comes at the end of the episode, I think they might have moved things around a little bit, maybe, because he said that he gave the dog some Turkish taffy, but it's at the end of the episode. Oh, I'll bring it up at the end of the episode, but it says that he gave the dog some candy, but the dog was already being the way the dog was at this point. So I think
maybe he had been giving the dog candy. Okay. Yeah. Because I did notice it, and it was something kind of weird that they go back to talking about the movie. It's like, what are you going to do? Da-da-da-da-da. And the dog. And then Kramer leaves that conversation, goes back to that hallway, kind of reaches for something, and then he turns around and leaves at the next scene with hand in his pocket. I was like, what did they cut out there?
Yeah. So I think that ties into the deleted scene. They probably plan on doing more.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So Brian can't get past this guy.
Yeah.
So anyway, Jerry says he can't go out because he doesn't want the dog pissing and shitting everywhere, basically. Mm-hmm. So he tells Elaine and George that they can't go. Or no, he tells Elaine to just go with George, but Elaine can't. She's only friends with George through Jerry, friends-in-law.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then George comes up. He's all excited to see the movie, but then Jerry tells him he can't go. Yada yada, because Kramer flaked, and then so he's got to stay and watch the dog. And then George is like, just put some papers down. Who cares?
Yeah.
No, like, oh my God, you can't do that because it would just be dog piss and shit just soaking into hardwood floor.
Yeah.
They're definitely not linoleum floor.
No.
And just soaking in for hours. It's like, and then he's like, oh, just put some Lysol on it, clean it up. And he's like, Lysol and the shit will just mix like BO and cologne.
We used to have apple spray in the bathroom work because it's a no scent thing, no fragrance. So they had apple because it's more of a natural smell. But it was like this aerosol can. Like it wasn't like Febreze. It was like an industrial can.
Like
and
Blade or something like that.
You'd spray it and it smelled like apples, but then it just smelled like you ate a bag of apples and then had a shit. Like it didn't cover up the shit. It just mixed in with it. So that's what I picture when you talk about this. Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I think too. Of like when people are like, oh, they have this spray. It's like, no, it just smells like lavender and shit. It doesn't fucking work.
Poopery instead of potpourri.
Mm-hmm. Poopery. I think matches work.
Matches work great. I keep matches.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But now, not the sprays. So, Jerry tells him, go on without him, and then they're both kind of put in an awkward spot. Like they don't want to go, but they also don't want to be the ones to offend the other one. Like they don't dislike each other, but it's just like
they don't have awkward because
we're not there yet. So, which they've hung out before.
Yes.
So, when George slipped his boss a Mickey,
yes,
it was him and Elaine going through that process at the bar. So, the writers fucked up.
We should file a complaint with their
boy. Service. I hope someone got fired for that blunder.
We're gonna go for a coffee in a car with Jerry and talk to him about this.
Look here, fuckface. But they decided to go see a different movie. Anyway, so it cuts to a stand-up bit about walking dogs and picking up their shit in little poop bags.
Yeah.
And it's like, what if aliens, were real and they saw what was going on here? They're going to think the dogs are the leaders. It's like, okay, one makes a poop, and then the other one picks it up and carries it around with them.
Yeah.
Like, one of them built all the cities and cars and, but they still pick up that thing's shit.
Yeah.
That must be the smartest being. And it cuts to George and Elaine at Monk's.
Did we miss Kramer breaking up with his girlfriend?
Coming up.
Okay.
So this is all actually like a boom, boom, boom scene.
Yeah.
So checks in with all of them and then keeps cutting back. So
yeah.
Opens up with that George and Elaine. They're making awkward conversation. Just talking about where Elaine's lived and how long and then when she moved.
Yeah.
Now, this is a good scene with two good actors.
Yeah, they play it well.
They're really like playing, laying on how of a real awkward conversation situation would go down. It's not necessarily, it's funny because it's so real, I think, because they're just like pauses, their mannerisms, and like the way they look, and kind of like Elaine's hiding her yawning at some point.
Mm-hmm.
It's so it's kind of like there's some dead air on purpose.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to Jerry yelling at the dog. He's this is like one of the Jerry just shut up kind of moments. And he pleads with the dog. He's like, "You want money? I'll give you money." He's offering the dog money to stop barking.
Yeah.
And like that'll stop it. And then stop it from shitting in the house and barking. And then I don't know, that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to Kramer breaking up with his girlfriend, just laying into her first person perspective from like the girlfriend, which is pretty good. There's a lot of good lines here. So I think this is a great Kramer scene where he's like, "I must have been out of my mind. Look at you. Why don't you do something with your life? You just sit around here all day. You contribute nothing to society. You're just taking up space." Which is the kettle call, pot calling the kettle black.
Respect myself.
Yeah. It's the pot calling the kettle black because Kramer doesn't do jack shit all day.
I just couldn't imagine breaking up with someone that, like just standing above them, screaming at them like that. Like,
she's sitting down. He's just yelling at her.
Oh my God.
You contribute nothing to society.
But this shows his range of acting capability. Like, this is like a monologue of sorts.
He's just doing it, to a camera. So it's like essentially no one.
Yeah.
Which is another great thing because you never see this woman at all. So it's another thing they probably saved on actors, that it's just like, oh, and you don't need to fucking get a dog or train a dog or even puppeteer for a dog.
Even trying to have someone react to that scene, you need a really good actor to react to that scene. But just doing the monologue, it worked.
Yeah. So then that's how quick it is. It goes back to George and Elaine, and it's just another boring conversation about tea. Yeah. This is where Elaine's just hiding her yawning. She's like, "Oh my God." And then awkward pause. And then Elaine brings up how Jerry likes tea, Morning Thunder. Yeah. And how he doesn't know that it has caffeine in it. He just gets all hyper and he has no reason why. He doesn't understand why. He just loves it.
Yeah.
And they go on and laughing about that. And then makes me think, I think I'm a real caffeined. Like I drink at least a cup of coffee every day.
Oh yeah.
I couldn't imagine not. I definitely have gotten better because I don't drink energy drinks anymore. I think it's been over a month and a half or 2.
Good.
Which is great. I'm like, this isn't good for me. And so, I guess I should have marked the date, but it was just a thing. I'm like, I'm gonna stop buying. I'm gonna stop buying these.
And they're expensive as hell, man. Like I get tubs of like energy drink powder.
Yeah.
And I have one when I really need it. But when I was working before, like I'd make one instead of a tea in the morning. I'd make this energy drink.
Yeah.
And sometimes I still will for the drive in the morning, and then I don't have it the rest of the day. But the new job has a coffee maker in the break room, like the gas station style. You can pick the latte or the cappuccino.
Yeah.
And it's awful because it's just so convenient. You just walk in, press a button, you go pee, you come back. There's a coffee sitting there waiting for you. It's not good.
I'll take a coffee though. Maybe black or with a little bit of stevia in there. And then almond milk, and I'm good to go. That's kind of my thing. I'm like, all right, I don't think this is great for you, but it's better than energy drinks.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm glad I kind of stopped that.
Your heart will say thank you in 10 years.
Like a coworker, she's like, "Oh, do you drink energy drinks?" Because she's like trying a new one, and I'm like, "No, I'm actually stopping." She's like, "Oh, never mind then." And I'm like, "Okay, what were you gonna say about it?" And she's like, "I really like these. They're more or less shit in it." But I'm like, "There's still a lot of shit in there."
She doesn't even want to talk about the energy drink. She just wants to talk to you because she thinks you're cute. She's like, "You drink energy drink?" Nope. Walk away.
No, shithead. They're really fucking bad for you. I'm better because I drink 8 cups of coffee a day.
And then she's just like,
This fucking moron. But yeah,
continue on.
Anyways, yeah. Yeah, so it's kind of funny. I'm like, oh, just drinking tea. I'm like, oh, I'm sure it wouldn't have any effect on me at all. Just because I'm like, oh, at least one coffee a day. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
So, anyways, they're laughing and bonding over how Jerry gets all hyper and caffeinated with his tea. And then George, they're laughing and chuckling. And then George asks, like, have you ever seen him throw up? And they both start mocking Jerry of like grunting. Like,
But Jerry has also said on the record he hasn't vomited since 1981. So I don't know who's telling the truth now.
Yeah. It could be like, maybe Elaine was around at that time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they're, bonding and now they're talking and having enjoying their conversation, but really at Jerry's expense.
Yeah.
So and then it cuts back to Kramer, and now he's begging Ellen, to take him back. He didn't mean it. He takes it all back. I love you. And he's crying and shit. I take it all back. And then it goes, Jerry, he's back. He's on the phone. And then he's got a lead on Gavin Paloma, the dog owner.
Yeah.
So he was released already, and he hasn't contacted Jerry. He was released last Monday from the hospital, which to me, I'm like, it's only been, this is like on Monday. I'm like, yeah, last Monday. I'm like, it's only been 3 days.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what day is this?
I know. What day did this air on?
Yeah. I'm like, they're not keeping track of any of this. And I'm like, again, I hope somebody got fired for that blunder.
Yeah. I really hope so.
Somebody's just ripping apart this show, like what, 30 years later?
Yeah.
Actually, do you remember at this minute? So Jerry, he's talking to the dog, and he's like, he's gonna take the dog to the pound, and he's all stoked. He's like, the owner abandoned the dog, and so he's like, you going to the pound? He's all, he's proclaiming it. He's like, yeah, that's it. He abandoned the dog. I'm done. What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
And then Elaine is over, and she's talking about her and George have hung out before, but it was awkward because this was a one-on-one situation. And then Jerry's like, oh, it's the toughest one because there's no handoff when you're in a conversation. And then she says they only bonded when they were making fun of Jerry, which Jerry like looks like, it's like, I want to say something about that, but George calls. Yeah. And then Jerry explains the plan that the three of them are going to take the dog to the pound, and then they're going to go see the movie. And George, like, you can't hear him, but he's stressing. He's like, is it going to be all three of us? He's like, yes, I'm going.
Yeah. George is all stressed.
Again, now he's singing a song, he's dancing, and he's like, take to the pound. He's like dancing. He's excited to get the dog out of his life. But Elaine, she's against it. Like, what if the guy, what if he lost your number? He's like, I'm in the phone book, and I got a machine. The guy could, reach me, And then she's like, oh, we can't take the dog in, because you know what they do at the pound? If nobody claims them within a week, they're killed. And then Jerry jokes, he's like, how late are they open?
And you're just indifferent with this dog.
That was pretty good, because he almost cracked up. I wonder if that was like planned or not, because his face, he couldn't keep the smile off his face. Like, how late are they open? His little smirk. I was like, that was good. So, basically, let's fucking do this. And then Kramer comes in and says that he went back with Ellen. They didn't break up. And they both try and backpedal and say nice things about her, but they're being phony. And Kramer knows it. Yeah. He didn't forget what they said. And then, I like this little line. When we see each other in the hall, I don't know you, you don't know me.
Ending it with stress.
And then he takes his pot back and leaves the apartment. It goes back to his own apartment.
It goes in the cupboard to get his pot.
Yeah.
That he keeps at his friend's house.
Yeah. And then they're reflecting. I'm like, what did we say that was so bad? And then he's like, oh, I believe I referred to her personality as a potential science exhibit. I says, oh, and I said, how come no one has killed her? Yeah, not good. Yeah. Those are both not good. And so, the first breakup never takes. They should have said nothing. So George buzzes up, and Elaine talked Jerry into keeping the dog for one more day. So she's going to stay and watch Farfel. And George and Jerry are going to go see Ponce de Leon instead of Prognosis Negative. Like, okay, go see that because Jerry is supposed to go see it. He promised Elaine they're going to go together. And George was going to go with him. So Jerry, he's going to go to the bathroom. And then he said, okay, talk amongst yourselves. And they both freak out.
Yeah.
How long are you going to be in there?
You can't go at the theater.
like every minute that he's in there is going to be torture for both of them.
Yeah.
And they try and convince him not to go and, just go at the movies, hold it. Urinals are fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jerry just like leaves and he just leaves them in their awkward conversation starts up. And then, she's like, oh, he just takes so long in there. It's like, you know why? It's because he gargles. And they both make fun of him gargling. And then George, they're laughing and stuff like that. And George, she brings up, you ever seen him throw up thing again? And then it's a played bit already. And Lane's like, I think we talked about that already.
Yeah.
Like we're already on repeats. So, and then it goes to, they're in line at the movies. And George is talking about how he has nothing to say anymore to anyone. And Jerry's like, why do you call me 6 times a day?
Yeah.
Except sports. I can always read the sports section and talk sports. That's just like a little conversation while they're in line. And then they see that Ponce de Leon is sold out, but Prognosis Negative is playing. And Jerry said, like, I can't see it without Elaine. I've got to see it with her. I promised. And then back to the apartment, and Elaine's fighting and yelling at the dog the same way Jerry did.
Yeah.
And then phone rings.
When I get through with you, you're begging to go to the bathroom.
Yeah. She's threatening the dog. And then, it's the guy, the drunk guy. It's the dog guy. I think that's what she says. Like, oh my God, it's the dog guy. And then she's like, you better pick your dog up tonight or he's humped his last leg. And then back to the movie. So George convinces Jerry just to go see the movie without Elaine. Like, what's the whole saving movies thing is stupid. It's silly. What are you supposed to do? Nothing? It's not like she's in the movie. And then he decides, okay, we're going to do it. And then they're like, all right, you're in trouble. He's going to be in trouble. So back to Jerry's, and the drunk guy is there. And he's taking the dog back. He's explaining that he had Bell's palsy. The whole side was paralyzed.
Yeah.
And then Jerry calls him out on it and says, like, oh, I called, and then they said you were released on Monday. It's like, oh, I was taken to Bell's Palsy Center.
Yeah.
Just making shit up. And then the whole time while he's talking to Jerry, he's wrestling with the leash, and the dog's in the hallway, just barking and snarling and shit like that, and just like guys kind of pulling him. And then he's barking at Kramer, and you can hear Kramer off camera say, it's like, hey, you better keep that mutt away from me. And that guy's like, mutt, I'll wager his parents are more pure than yours.
That's exciting. Because purebred dogs are like pretty well incest.
And then after that, little remark from the drunk guy, it goes, you can hear Ellen, the girlfriend, call across the hallway. It's like, for Kramer. And then Kramer kind of just slinks his shoulders down, goes back to the apartment, kind of like, oh man, I fucked up.
I want to break up with her again.
Yeah. And then Jerry's kind of shooing the guy out. And then the guy's like, I predict that you'll miss the dog, and by the end of the month you'll be begging to see him again.
Prediction.
Jerry never wants to see this guy or the dog ever again.
Yeah.
And then the dog yanks the drunk guy out of the doorway, just like out of the scene, just like, whoa.
Yeah.
Pretty,
disappears.
Good. Again, showing that the dog isn't, around. You never see the fucking thing.
Yeah.
So it goes back to Jerry's, and he's telling Elaine that, they shouldn't go see the movie. Like, he's playing like he hasn't seen it, but he, it sucked from what he heard. George told me it sucked.
Yeah.
And Elaine's like, really, George? I saw him yesterday and he didn't mention it. And then talks about how, I really wanted to, see George and talk about how we don't have anything to talk about.
Yeah.
And then Kramer comes in and says that him and Ellen broke up again.
Yeah.
This time they keep their mouths shut. Oh. And then Elaine drags him to go see Prognosis Negative, and Jerry's not excited. And then Kramer's like, oh, that's supposed to be great. It's not. I have an instinct about these things. And then it fades. I like that. That was pretty good.
So that is the scene where Kramer comes in when the owner's there. He's talking to him, and then they leave. And then Kramer says, I shouldn't have given, how do you say it? I forget what he said. Yeah, I think he just said, I shouldn't have given that Turkish taffy, which is just like a candy. It's not actually Turkish. It's just like a taffy.
Yeah.
So I think they played on that the entire time whenever Kramer's there, he's feeding the dog sugar.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why the dog was acting so crazy. So.
Yeah, that's probably it. That would have been great. That would have been great to leave in
that's
there.
what he comes back. That's what the owner comes back later, and he's yelling at Jerry saying, "What did you give to my dog?" Blah blah blah. Then Kramer walks in. The guy leaves, and he goes, "I guess I should have given him that Turkish taffy." So yeah.
Oh, okay.
So apparently, it was a really well behaved dog that was erratic because of Cosmo, or because of Kramer.
Yeah, I guess also it doesn't really add up too because the dog's acting, a fool. No, that's what I wanted to say. The dog's all acting up and shit like that with the owner, and the owner doesn't seem too worried about it. Like, this is normal. So I think it didn't really fit into, like, the story. Like, there was too many angles that they were going with, maybe, that they're just like, I cut that scene out. Forget it. We don't need it.
For sure.
But it does end with a stand-up bit about pets. How he had a parakeet when he was a kid. And then he mentions how his mom had a room that had this wall that was completely mirrored. Like, to give the illusion of space. And he's like, what, like some dipshit's going to walk into that room, see a mirror, and think, whoa, you got a whole nother room there with a guy standing in it that looks like me. But the parakeet would fall for this. Like, it flies around and then sees another room, boom, hits the mirror. And he, if he thinks there's another room that he's going to fly into, why doesn't the parakeet try to avoid hitting the other parakeet? And then it ends. I think it was an okay. Yeah, it was an okay joke. It kind of like fell flat, maybe because he was just trying to do like a tag on another animal joke. But to me, I'm like, I was like, not your best one, Jerry.
Yeah, it could use some polish.
Yeah, kind of more just like a funny idea.
Yeah,
but anyways, I work at a furniture store, and it's definitely a design choice that people say all the time. The big floor mirrors give the illusion of space.
Mm-hmm.
It's all the fucking time. I'm like, really? Like, people? Okay, I thought mirrors are so you could see. Yourself.
They use them to make it look bigger,
and people believe it.
Even like the way you line your floorboards up is supposed to make your room look longer and bigger. And like, you can still only fit so much shit in there, depending on how big it looks or not. Right? So.
Yeah, and then like some of these mirrors are really fucking big.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who has these houses? Like, if you can fit a mirror that size into one of your rooms to make it look bigger, you don't need it because the room's already fucking big. Already fucking big. It's like, how much space do you need? Do you need the illusion of space? Like, bitch, you already got it.
Yeah, we were looking for a mirror, like to have like a full length mirror,
mm-hmm.
to have a full length mirror. And there's so many like floor models, like little stands, and I'm like, who has that much floor space? That's taking like 3 square feet of floor space. I don't got that room in my fucking bedroom. I need something that goes on the wall.
So space is at a premium here.
Yeah.
But that's it. That's the episode. I thought the episode was fine. I didn't really get why.
I think the parts that bothered me were just where Jerry's like screaming at the dog. I'm like, I get it. The dog's not easy to handle. And then I think it was just, I'm also a little sensitive right now with my recent loss. It didn't really help. But I'm like, stop yelling at the dog.
Yeah, maybe to me, I'm like, I don't really get why it's the least favorite. Maybe because the storyline with the dog was the least memorable part of the episode, actually, even though that was like the whole story. The parts with Elaine and George going making fun of him throwing up. I totally remember that. That's definitely memorable. And then Kramer yelling at his, the girlfriend, like, you contribute nothing to society. Like, to me, I'm like, that scene is pretty iconic. But the rest of it, not that it's not memorable, but it to me is like the least important part of the episode.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's the driving force of it.
Yeah.
So I think maybe that's why. But yeah, I couldn't get why people disliked it so much. Maybe because if you had to pick a least favorite, you had to pick one. So might as well be this one.
It's like your least favorite ice cream, like pizza, like you said. Just they're all good. So
like it's still pizza. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the episode. It was pretty good.
Yeah, I liked it. It was good.
Yeah. So, I guess we're gonna bring this in for a landing. Emergency landing in Chicago. So, thanks for tuning into the Second Button podcast. You can find us on Twitter and on YouTube. You can watch the video podcast. So
Twitter is 2ND second. 2ND button cast because
on two
short handles. Everything else is Second Button cast, all spelled out with words like an adult.
Yeah, on Instagram as well. All linked in the description of the podcast here. So give us a sub over on YouTube, and if you
click the bell
on Spotify, click that bell. Leave us a review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and hopefully give us a 5-star rating. And I think that's it. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Look at you. Why don't you do something with your life? Sit around here all day. You contribute nothing to society. You're just taking up space. I mean, how could I be with someone like you? And respect myself.